Hi, welcome to Loft 801. My name is Diego, and today I'm talking about Invincible Season 1, which is honestly one of my favorite seasons of superhero media ever. This is one of those shows that completely blindsided me when I first watched it. I remember seeing this back in 2021, and after that first episode, I was all in. I binged the rest of it as fast as I could because I genuinely could not believe what I had just seen. And now, after seeing Season 1 multiple times, I can confidently say that this show and this season are still incredible. It still hits, it still feels fresh, it still feels brutal, emotional, exciting, and honestly special. At that point in time, I was still following Marvel pretty heavily. I was watching stuff like WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I was still very much in that superhero mindset. But I was starting to feel the burnout creeping in. A lot of superhero content started to feel too safe, too polished, too formulaic, and just kind of like content for the sake of content. And then Invincible came along and it felt like a massive breath of fresh air. This show reminded me that superhero stories can still feel dangerous. They can still feel emotional, they can still shock you, hurt you, and genuinely leave you sitting there with your jaw on the floor. Season 1 is a masterpiece. FYI, this review will contain spoilers. Sorry, not sorry, you've had 5 years to catch up. The story of Invincible starts off in a way that feels deceptively familiar. You've got markgrayson, a normal teenager who just happens to be the son of the most powerful superhero on Earth, Omniman. Mark is waiting for his powers to kick in, and once they do, he starts training to become a hero himself under the name Invincible. On paper, that setup sounds like it could be a pretty standard coming-of-age superhero story. Son of a Superman-type character, gets his powers, he tries to learn responsibility and balance school life, personal life, and superhero life all together. We've seen versions of that premise before, but what makes Invincible so special is that it takes that familiar structure and then it completely detonates it. That first episode is still one of the craziest season openers I've ever seen. The show lulls you into thinking you know what kind of world this is. You meet the Guardians of the Globe, who are this universe's version of the Justice League. The series introduces all these heroes, gives them presence, gives them personalities, gives the world texture, and then the ending happens. Omniman murders the entire team in one of the most shocking, violent, and unforgettable plot twists I've ever experienced. That moment instantly changes everything. Suddenly, the story isn't just about Mark becoming a superhero. It's about trust, deception, legacy, power, violence, and the horrifying realization that the most powerful protector on Earth might actually be its greatest threat. And what I really love is that the show does not waste that twist. It doesn't just rely on shock value, it actually builds on it in a meaningful way. The rest of the season becomes this slow, painful unraveling of who Nolan really is, what he wants, what Viltrum represents, and what all of that means for Mark, Debbie, and the entire planet. Episodes 2, 3, and 4 are a little more setup heavy, especially compared to the insane premiere and the back half, but even then, the writing is strong because the show is constantly building tension. You're watching the lie slowly crack apart. Debbie's starting to put things together, Cecil knows more than he lets on, and Mark keeps trying to become the hero he thinks his father is, while we, the audience, know that there is something deeply wrong under the surface. Then, once the season hits episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8, the entire show becomes completely unreal. Episode 5 with Battlebeast is one of the biggest moments in the whole season because it reminds you how dangerous this world really is. Mark gets absolutely destroyed. The new Guardians get wrecked. The threat levels shoot through the roof. Then episode 7 raises things again with Nolan going fully hostile, Cecil throwing everything he can at him, and the Immortal rematch being broadcast for the world to see. And then episode 8 is just devastating. It's the best superhero finale episode that I've ever seen, tied only with itself the season 3 finale. Stay tuned for that review. The reveal of Viltrum's true purpose, Nolan explaining the Earth was never protected out of kindness but was actually being prepared for conquest, and then the sheer emotional brutality of Mark having to fight his own father. It is incredible storytelling. It's cosmic in scale, but it also feels deeply personal. That's what makes it work. That is one of my favorite things about Invincible. A lot of people focus on the violence, and yeah, the violence is absolutely insane. This show is unbelievably bloody, brutal, and graphic. When it wants to hurt you, it hurts you. Bones break, skulls crack, bodies get obliterated, and the show does not flinch from the physical consequences of superpowered violence. But what makes Invincible is that it's not just dark for the sake of being dark. That's the difference between something like this and The Boys for me. The Boys is darker, meaner, more cynical, more nihilistic. It's built to make you feel disgusted and hopeless a lot of the time. Invincible can be just as violent, but underneath all of that, it still has hope. It still has heart, heart and it still believes in goodness. Mark is the center of that. He gets beat up constantly. He gets humbled, he makes mistakes, he fails, he's naive sometimes, but he is such a hopeful, sincere, good-hearted protagonist, and that changes the whole tone of the show. This season isn't about a hero becoming jaded and evil. It's about a young man trying to stay good in a world that keeps showing him lies, betrayal, and overwhelming power. I love that. This season also has a lot to say about family, identity, loyalty, and inherited legacy. Mark is trying to figure out who he is, but the biggest part of his identity, being Nolan's son, becomes the very thing that threatens to destroy him. Debbie has to come to terms with the idea that the man she loved for 20 years may have been lying to her the entire time. Nolan himself becomes this fascinating contradiction, terrifying, monstrous, emotionally abusive, yet clearly not untouched by the family he built. That final exchange between Nolan and Mark is one of the best thematic payoffs in the entire season. Nolan is talking about time, empire superiority, destiny, all this grand Viltrumite ideology, and Mark's answer cuts through it all with something simple and human. That emotional core is what elevates this show. This series understands that the real weight of violence is emotional. The blood matters because the relationships matter. The voice acting in this season is phenomenal. I honestly think that part of what makes Invincible work so well is because the performances are grounded and realistic, emotionally real, even when the show becomes massive and insane. There's something about the animation combined with the voice work that captures a tone I honestly don't think live action could hit in quite the same way. Steven Yeun is fantastic as Mark. He feels young, awkward, hopeful, frustrated, insecure, and sincere in a way that makes him really easy to root for. He's still a kid just trying to figure out who he wants to be, and the show lets him be emotional. It lets him be scared, it lets him cry, and it lets him fail, which makes him feel more human. jksimmons as Nolan is one of the most compelling characters in the show. Omniman is terrifying. He's insanely powerful, and the show does a great job of making him feel like an actual unstoppable force. But what makes him fascinating is that he isn't just a villain in the simple sense. He's manipulative, cold, imposing, and often horrifying, but he also has layers of buried feeling and conflict underneath all of that. He genuinely scared me, but I also couldn't stop watching him. He is undoubtedly the coolest and coldest character in the entire show. Sandraoh is perfect as Debbie. Debbie is one of the best characters in the season because she is the emotional anchor of the entire show. She's smart, emotionally strong, observant, grounded, and human in a way that gives the series so much of its dramatic weight. A lot of stories like this would reduce the mom character into the background, but this show doesn't do that. It puts her front and center because she matters, her intelligence matters, her heartbreak matters. She truly is the one character who saves the world by teaching Mark to be human. All of the other side characters are great too. William is funny, direct, and has that kind of blunt honesty that makes him really likable. He adds humor without feeling forced, and I love that when things get serious, he still feels like a real friend. Eve is one of my favorite characters in the show. I love her powers, I love her personality, and I love that she actually wants to make a meaningful difference, bringing emotional sincerity into every scene she's in. She has strong chemistry with Mark, and I found myself really invested in their dynamic. Amber is interesting because my feelings for her kind of changed throughout the season. Early on, I loved her and Mark together. They had cute chemistry, and I liked her confidence and energy, but as the season went on, I became more mixed on that relationship, especially compared with Mark and Eve, who just felt like a stronger emotional match to me. Cecil is a great government handler type because he feels pragmatic rather than cartoonish. Robot is fascinating. Rex is a jerk, but he's entertaining. Monster Girl is cool. The Mauler twins are weirdly hilarious, and Battlebeast is an absolute menace. There are so many memorable characters here, and that's what gives this world life. What I appreciate most is that the show knows when to be fun, when to be emotional, and when to be horrifying. It balances these characters with school scenes, awkward romance, superhero spectacle, political tension, family drama, and gut punch violence in a way that feels surprisingly smooth. The soundtrack in the season is also fantastic. This is one of the shows where the music doesn't just sit in the background, it actively strengthens the mood of the scenes. Whether it's a soaring superhero moment, a sad emotional scene, or a brutally intense sequence, the show uses music really well. There are several needle drops throughout the season, like Tom Tom, where it just hits. The music helps the series feel youthful, emotional, and alive. It gives the show a pulse. It also helps that the soundtrack choices often line up really well with what Mark is feeling in that moment. So the music ends up reinforcing the emotional point of view of the season. And of course, the title card is iconic. Watching it get bloodier and bloodier across the season is such a small but brilliant touch. Every time it hit, I got excited. excited. Now, I know the animation for Invincible gets a lot of hate, but I love it. There's something about this visual style that allows the show to be both colorful and brutal at the same time. The cityscapes look great. The flying sequences have energy, the action scenes hit hard, the gore lands with shocking force, and I think the facial expressions can carry real emotion, especially when paired with the voice acting. Lastly, the scale of the destruction feels massive. This story benefits so much from being animated. I mentioned this earlier, but the animation allows the show to shift tones in a way that live action probably couldn't do without feeling awkward. It can go from a normal school scene to a cosmic alien battlefield to one of the bloodiest superhero fights you've ever seen, and it all still feels cohesive. The final battle between Mark and Nolan is a perfect example. The entire sequence is visually incredible. The speed, the destruction, the impact, the blood, the horror of what Nolan is doing to Mark and everyone around him, it all comes together in a way that feels overwhelming in the best possible way. The final thing I want to say is that everything, and I mean everything about this season, is completely unforgettable. Every major fight feels distinct. The Guardians massacre is horrifying, the Flaxen battles are chaotic and intense, Battlebeast's beatdown is jaw-dropping, Omniman versus Cecil's defenses is awesome, and the final Nolan versus Mark is completely peak. Even characters like Titan or Doc Seismic are memorable. I had a blast watching this season, and if Amazon sold steelbooks for this show, I would cop them in a heartbeat. Invincible Season 1 is incredible. As of recording this is in the top 2 superhero seasons I've ever watched, and honestly, my favorite animated show in this space. It has great animation, fantastic voice acting, brutal action, great music, strong writing, memorable characters, and one of the best season finales I've ever seen. What really sets it apart for me is that it balances extreme violence with genuine heart. It has the brutality and shock value people talk about, but it also has hope, sincerity, love, pain, and emotional depth. Mark is such a strong protagonist because he still believes in people even after everything. Debbie is incredible, Nolan is terrifying and fascinating, Eve is one of the best characters in the show, William is great, the entire season just works. Episode 1 blew me away, episodes 5, 7, and 8 absolutely dropped my jaw, and by the end of the season, I had zero complaints. This is one of those rare shows where every time I revisit it, I still come away impressed. Season 1 of Invincible is a masterpiece. Thank you for listening to my review of Invincible Season 1. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and hit subscribe. If you did not enjoy the video, thank you for sticking around. As always, I would love to read what you have to say, so leave a comment and let me know what you're thinking. Also, if there's something you want to see reviewed, don't forget to let me know and I will do my best to get to it. Lastly, if you want to see some more from me, then you can check out my vlogs linked up above or my podcast, Good Friends. Again, thank you for watching. My name is Diego, and I will see you next time.